All right, brothers, today we're going to be talking about dealing with the anxiety that comes with porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Now, early in your reboot, you're going to be dealing with at least some porn-induced erectile dysfunction anxiety, if that is something affecting you. Okay, if it isn't, you don't need to watch this video. In the YouTube app, go to notifications and turn on subscriptions. In the settings, go to notifications and scroll to the YouTube app and allow notifications. But you flooded your brain with dopamine from porn for so long that getting and maintaining an erection is going to be challenging from time to time. And porn-induced erectile dysfunction anxiety is overwhelmingly difficult to deal with, but it's just part of the process. So there are a few things that you can do to minimize the time that you actually spend dealing with it. So I'm actually going to share my experience with porn-induced erectile dysfunction and the anxiety that I experienced that came with it. This was back when I was in college, and I was still struggling with my out-of-control sexual behavior at this point. I remember being out at a bar, I believe it was like a Thursday night, like college night, and I saw this beautiful Brazilian girl who was on one of the sports teams in my school. So long story short, we got to dancing together, there were some drinks involved, we made out a little bit, and at the end of the night, I suggested continuing, at her place. So we headed back to her place and we were about to have sex, but I just couldn't perform. So as beautiful as she was, as much as I desired her, I just couldn't get an erection. And I had this gorgeous woman in front of me and nothing was happening. It was just like a floppy dick that wasn't doing anything. So I managed to, get a little bit hard when I started thinking about scenes from pornography, but I couldn't even maintain it, and that felt terrible. I wasn't only anxious that I couldn't follow through with this, but I was also worried about her judging me. So this was an awful, embarrassing, and frankly speaking, it was a pathetic situation to be in. Now, in your case, the question I want you to ask yourself is, how many times have you found yourself in a situation like that? Like, it could have been with your wife, it could have been with your girlfriend, or even some woman you try to hook up with. It's something I struggled with, and I carried it with me for many years, especially that experience. It eventually prevented me from getting close to women that I was attracted to because I was afraid, basically, that I wouldn't perform. And over time, this leads you to throw away many opportunities. You start creating a lot of issues for yourself. There are women who you meet that you're interested in, but you're going to sabotage the relationship in some way, right? You keep thinking, what's the point of moving this forward? Because despite how I put my best foot forward, at the end of the day, I'm just going to disappoint her sexually and embarrass myself. Eventually, you start internalizing all these limiting beliefs and this negative self-talk. Now, to be fair, you might be right in some of these cases, but you're probably wrong more often than you think, though. The truth that I've learned over the years and dozens of women later is that your porn-induced erectile dysfunction and the anxiety that comes with it depends on one thing. It depends on the woman. See, there are two types of women that you should concern yourself with when it comes to your porn-induced erectile dysfunction anxiety, especially early on when you're dealing with it. The first type of women are experienced women, right? Like your wife, long-term girlfriend, women who have had many sexual partners, or women who have been in a long-term relationship in the past. And then there are less experienced women, such as a younger woman who hasn't had sex with many men, maybe one or two partners. So how are these women different? Well, most men who are really concerned about their porn-induced erectile dysfunction and who have a lot of anxiety around it, when I speak to them as clients, interestingly enough, they're often worried about women who are experienced. They're thinking of their wife or their long-term girlfriend or even a casual one-night stand. But here's the thing though, experienced women tend to be less concerned with your porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Guess what? Because they've come across it at some point. Right? Think about it this way. If the woman is experienced, she's already been with multiple men. She's had all kinds of sex with different men prior to meeting you. So this means it's not the first time that she's dealt with a man not being able to get it up, because almost all guys view pornography. Another thing about experienced women is that they've been with men who have different size penises, right? And this is important because men who struggle with porn and who have PIED have this warped understanding of penis size. So we think that it matters more than it actually does. But your experienced partner is with you for a reason, right? So that means that she's already interested in you and she likes what you are working with down there. And finally, experienced women understand that sex isn't going to be great. I've said this before. There are times where someone's mind is in a different place, they're distracted. Some days, one of you is just not into it. The same is true for one-night stands. Usually, more often than not, to be honest, it's extremely rare that a one-night stand sex is great. And women with experience, they know all these things. They realize that sex isn't always going to be the best and that you're not going to get hard all the time, and it's not a big deal. So they've been in that position in the past, and they know it's not necessarily something that has to do with them. But inexperienced women can be a different situation. It's a little bit different. Maybe they've met or they've dated several guys, but they haven't actually had sex with many of these guys. Or maybe they're women who got married when they were really young, or they recently got divorced, and now they're getting back into the dating scene. So they've only been with this one guy who was their college sweetheart or whatever. Now, early on in my reboot, I did try hooking up with women like this. And I was struggling with PIED. And there were times when I wasn't able to perform because my brain was still rewiring. And I found these inexperienced women were far more likely to be judgmental than experienced women. It's usually because these inexperienced women still deal with a lot of insecurity on their own. It's not a you thing. So many of them aren't yet comfortable with their sexuality, and they have a tendency to blame themselves. And these women think that you can't get it up because you don't find them attractive. They don't yet realize that men aren't able to perform all the time. So they have their own issues. But at the same time, you're blaming themselves, but you're also blaming yourself. So you know the real reason for your struggles, but you're not able to explain this to her. So women who are inexperienced and blaming themselves tend to lash out at you sometimes instead. They point the blame at you, but understand, brother, they're doing this to protect themselves from feeling hurt. So what can you do about it? Well, I would say don't worry. There are some things that you can do to deal with your performance anxiety, especially when it's related to PIED. And this is especially true, and it's really important for men who are married or in long-term relationships, in my opinion. So try out a couple of these things that I'm going to share with you and see if any of them actually help with your performance anxiety or PIED. The first thing is get your testosterone levels checked. 9 times out of 10, the men I work with find that their testosterone levels are just way too low. So a lot of men are walking around with the levels of like a freaking 70-year-old man. Of course you're going to have performance issues. So get your levels checked and then talk to your doctor about how to get them back to normal levels. The second thing is control your behavior with pornography. Your testosterone levels contribute to the problem if they're low, but the main issue stems from your pornography addiction. So if you weren't addicted to watching pornography, you wouldn't have as hard a time with your performance, right? So you need to control your compulsive behavior with porn and masturbation because it's only going to keep the problem going. The third thing is adjust your mindset, right? Listen and realize that if you're with a long-term partner like your wife or a girlfriend, she already likes you. This woman is invested in you. She cares about you. Your performance anxiety probably doesn't affect your relationship as much as your response to your anxiety does. That's what's really affecting your relationship. So you need to adjust your mindset surrounding your porn-induced erectile dysfunction as you work on it. And the fourth thing is something that I've spoken about in the past, but focus on foreplay. If you're still early in your reboot and you know that you're going to have a hard time getting an erection, then focus on foreplay. Spend time focusing on it, and it'll give you more opportunities to reach the point where you can perform. So even if you weren't able to get there, you and your partner can still have a fun time with foreplay. It doesn't always have to be sex and penetration, right? So brothers, that's all I have for you today. Just a reminder that experienced women, again, they are not going to worry as much about your performance anxiety as you do. It's mostly in your head. They've been in this situation before. They're not going to tell you that, right? It's only going to be a big deal unless you make it out to be. And with inexperienced women, their judgment often comes from their insecurities. They're worried that you don't find them attractive, and they just don't realize that this is just how guys are. They're going to find out at some point, right? So that doesn't mean that the ball is completely out of your court though, right? You need to start by doing those 4 things that I mentioned and get a grip on your performance anxiety and your porn-induced erectile dysfunction. So, It is going to take time. It's going to take patience. It's going to take practice to get back to what is normal. I know you probably don't know what that's like anymore, but you can still go out and you can have a good time as you're rebooting. It's not going to send you into this spiral of out of control behavior as long as you understand and you internalize these concepts. Whenever you're ready, here are 4 ways that PornReboot can help you out for free. The first way is to subscribe to our channel and make sure you click on the notification bell to get a new video every other day. The second way is to get a copy of the free book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men. You'll learn about my personal struggle and the lessons I've learned over a decade, as well as strategies for putting together your porn reboot plan and ending your compulsive behavior with pornography or masturbation. So click on the link in the description below this video. The third way is if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners, guys who work in sales, consulting, or high-level jobs, men who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the PornReboot group on Facebook. There's also a link to join in the description below this video. And finally, if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, you want to be an authentic man and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, click on the link in the description below this video that says free coaching call, or visit elevatedrecovery.org and click on the link which says book a call.